Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Lions Den with another news and commentary. We got another police brutality situation, right? So this article comes from the Atlanta Black Star. It says, "Gets on your knees. Video shows Ohio cops kicking black man kneeling on the ground with his hands in the air after disturbance call." So what you're about to read, ladies and gentlemen, is showing you, and I know a lot of people going to say, did they comply? Did they comply? They complied throughout the entire situation. So this article, when I read this article, it's kind of like, no matter what you do, police officers still will treat you the way they want to treat you. And this isn't the only incident that happened. This is the state of Ohio. They got a lot of incidents that happen in Ohio that's basically showing you that, a lot that police officers not going to change what they do. The tactics, what they do, ain't changing at all. So this is important. So I want you to really, really listen to what I'm about to tell you, and because this gonna blow your mind. Really gonna blow your mind. So no matter what you do, you can comply all day, every day, all you want to, but they're still going to get you. They're still going to do something to you, even though you comply, even though you had your hands raised and everything. So it says, a viral video showing an Ohio cop running up to a 21-year-old black man kneeling on the ground with his hands in the air, kicking him in the head, has once again led to accusations of police abuse against the Canton Police Department. Jameer McElroy ended up hospitalized with a concussion, according to his attorney. He was arrested on charges of obstructing official business and resisting arrest, but the video shows he was neither resisting nor obstructing. But Canton Police Chief John Galbert defended the officer, whose name is Brandon Morivov, by saying, "And our officers frequently face stressful and dangerous situations confronted with armed suspects." But my question is, if they're, and this is what blows my mind with police chiefs, they like to defend their fellow officers. If you knew that, quote unquote, a dangerous situation confronting an armed suspect, why does he have a badge in the first place? Don't you know, by being a cop, you cannot let, stress, you cannot let stuff that happened in your mental state affect your job? But I digress. But plus, what does this have to do with your officer kick a guy who's complying in the head? This ain't got nothing to do with that. But also, it shows you that they will say and do anything to protect those officers from wrongdoing, even though they are wrongdoing. But still, let's continue. It says here's the thing. It says the image on the left shows Jameer McElroy right here, the circle, complying with police orders by kneeling and holding his hands in the air when Canton Police Officer Brandon Morov, circled in the photo on the right, comes running up and kicks him in the head. Now this is what the chief said. Their dedication to the community has resulted in exceptional reductions in violence, especially gun violence, over the past 2 years, Galbert said in a statement to the media. But McElroy's attorneys Bobby DiCello said the chief's statement was laughable, considering the attorney is representing 6 separate cases of police abuse committed by Canton Police over the past 2 years, including 3 that resulted in fatalities and 3 resulted in serious injuries, including in the most recent incident with McElroy. There's a group of people in Canton that are law enforcement officers who are treating ordinary citizens or ordinary civilians like enemy combatants, according to Bobby DiCello told NBC News. So, on one hand, the police chief wants to protect their department by saying this. But on the other hand, they knew that there's been police, corruption, and there's police misconduct in the department on their, on basically, and they know there's been fatalities and injuries to prove their case. See, now they've been under fire, and so now the chief has to, defend the officers, even though the officers were in the wrong. But this goes on since forever, right? How they say, well, and then, when people telling y'all they didn't comply, that's why these officers are doing this. They didn't comply. Well, as you see in the video or pictures, they did comply. So it says that there's a group of people in Canada that are law enforcement officers who are treating ordinary civilians like enemy combatants. According to Attorney General, excuse me, I'm sorry. Okay, so they said there are a group of people in Canton, Ohio. There are law enforcement officers who are treating ordinary civilians like enemy combatants. Attorney Bobby DeSello told NBC News. If this was in another context, you say that's a crime spree. And I totally agree with that. But see, there's been situations from the Canton Police Department, how they treated suspects, how they treated, black people for years. And they trying to cover it up. This is how police departments do. They want to cover up because they don't want their officers to be exposed. And the chief trying to clean up their image, but it's not working. It's not working. You see, there's incidents in police brutality for years in the state of Ohio. Not just Canton, but Cleveland, Cincinnati, Dayton. And yet they still don't address the issue at hand. They're still trying to, clean up their image. They're trying to think that the black people, the suspects, are the problem, but realistically, it's the officers who are the problem. But this is just Canton, Ohio as a whole. Not Cleveland, not Cincinnati, not Dayton, but Canton. And remember, this is the same officers. I think they had an incident when in Canton dealing with a black person, if I'm not mistaken, that the officers had police brutality at a bar in Canton. But I digress with that too. So it's crazy how the Canton police gets down, but the police chief tell the media, oh well, officers have to have been stressed and have to deal with stuff for dealing with this job. In other words, they've been, this is a dangerous job, blah, blah, blah. But you're not held your own officers accountable for what they did. It's crazy how you're supposed to be the police chief and you're supposed to be setting an example of your fellow officers, but your officers still doing what they're doing. See, it's crazy. So, here's what they said, Jameer McElroy video. The incident took place last Saturday night after someone called 911 at about 8:30 p.m. to complain about a group of 10 to 15 people arguing outside within the apartment complex. The dispatcher asked the caller if they had seen any weapons or if any individuals were getting violent, but the caller said no to both questions, according to Fox 8. Canton Police said that when they pulled up to the scene, several people began running away, including one suspect who carried a gun that was plainly visible to pursuing officers, according to Canton Repository. But see, now they're claiming that, oh, well, they received a call. 10 and 15 people were in that apartment complex. They're only arguing. There's no fights. There's no shootings. No nothing. Just arguing, but everything's really peaceful. Nothing happened after that. So Canton Police basically saying when they pulled up, people start running away, including one suspect who carried a gun that was plainly visible to the pursuing officer. And it was really funny because they tried to use that like, well, there's plenty of people there, but we saw a guy with a gun in plain sight, so we have to go after him. It's just how funny that this story is. So it's crazy. But then, you know, there's a video on Instagram. We'll give a shout out to Idaris Thompson. I think that's how you pronounce the name. If I said it wrong, I apologize. He posted the incident on Instagram, really on Instagram. So he says the pursuit was discontinued without any apprehension. The Canton repository stated without clearing further explanation. A witness recorded the video, which lasted only 24 seconds, but showed several cops stepping out of their patrol cars with guns drawn, ordering 3 black men on their knees. Get on the ground, on your knees, right now, the officers demanded. The men immediately complied with their orders. Then, seconds later, Mortarov comes running up from behind the officer and kicked McElroy in the head. So, the 911 dispatcher asked one of the people that called the police, did you see any guns? You see any weapons and everything else? The person said no. And then the officer said, well, we saw someone with a gun. It was really visible. But then look what they said is that the pursuit was discontinued without any apprehension. Why is it discontinued if you saying that you saw a guy with a gun? Does that make sense to you? If you saw a guy with a gun, you pursuing the suspect, and you said it's visible, but then all of a sudden, it said the pursuit was discontinued without any apprehension. And the reason why it was apprehension is because there's no gun. There's no gun. You don't see no gun around, or he had no gun in his possession. So that's why they said a witness recorded the video, which lasted only 24 seconds, but showed several cops stepping out of their patrol car with guns drawn, over 3 men on their knees. And I know I've been hearing a lot of people saying, oh, were they complying? Did they comply? Of course they did. So this isn't the only incident that Canton Police was involved in that was wrongfully justified. So it showed you the previous incidents, and again, shouts out to Atlanta Black Star. And it says Canton Police came under public scrutiny after shooting and unaliving a black man named James Williams on New Year's Eve in 2022, who had been shooting celebratory gunfire in the air, which means that it wasn't no threat. He was shooting in the air to celebrate New Year's Eve. They said, however, a grand jury declined to indict Canton Police Officer Robert Huber in September of 2022. Canton Police then shot and unalived a 24-year-old man named Zachary J. Fornash in December of 2023, who was carrying a pellet gun. Then earlier this year in April, Frank Tyson, 53, died in police custody after he repeatedly told officers, I can't breathe. Tyson's unalive was ruled a homicide by coroner's office. I think this is the same Frank Tyson that I was telling you that earlier, that, you know, police manhandled him in a bar in Canton. So it said the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, which handles investigations for the Ohio Attorney General's office, is investigating the 2 latter fatalities, according to Cleveland Scene. And then in May of this year, Canton Police, we're going to wait until, you know, the article scrolls up. But yeah, this isn't the only incident that Canton Police was involved in, and that has to be investigated. And the last one, Frank Tyson, I remember, I don't think I did the story about it, but I heard through Indisputable that the Canton Police was manhandling him at a bar and caused his unalignment. Okay, so it says, then in the May of this year, a Canton police officer unleashed a canine German Shepherd on a man named Cleveland Conver, who was already lying face down on the ground, being held down by cops. Convert had been pulled over for failing the signal before pulling over to a curb. Then police said he had a gun in the car. However, that cop, Nicholas Castro, was fired in June over the incident. So, in this incident, right, you know, they sent a canine unit, a German Shepherd dog, you know, attacking the suspect while he was lying face down on the ground. And then the cop was saying, well, he had a gun in the car. But if I'm not mistaken, in the state of Ohio, there is you have a right, open carry. Ohio's an open carry state, if I'm not mistaken. So even though he has a gun in the car, was he a threat to you? And that's mainly the reason why Nicholas Castro was fired, because that suspect wasn't even a threat to him. But yet they say he saw a gun in the car. But Ohio is an open carry state, as well as stand your ground law. But I digress. It says DeCello told NBC News that Canton police also arrested and punched a man and called him horrific names when he tried to stop the dog attack. So basically, he punched this man, even though he tried to tell him stop using the dog on this guy. And then we refused to listen, and then the officer come after him. So it states that Chief Gabbard indicated in his statement that Moroff will be disciplined in an investigation determined he violated policy or the law, which is how it appears in the video. Officers using force outside the perimeters of our training policy and principle will be held accountable, he said. However, DeCello, I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second, because I have an issue with this. So I'm going to go ahead and wait for it to go up real quick. But, I have an issue with the article. I'm sorry about that. But I'm going to go ahead and finish the article in a second. But it shows you, basically, ladies and gentlemen, that Canton police officers has been doing corrupt stuff for years and try to cover it up. And so now you got this incident that happened. And so, at the end of the day, now hopefully that the seller going to do something about this, who's this young man's attorney. So now it says, however, that Nicholas Castro was fired in June over the incident. So they said DeCello told NBC News that Canton police also arrested and punched a man, called him horrific names when he tried to stop dog attack. Chief Gabbard indicated in a statement that Moroff would be disciplined in an investigation to determine he violated policy or the law, which is how it appears in the video. Officers using force outside the perimeters of our training policy and principle will be held accountable, he said. Now, either this police, now check this out. It says, however, DeCello, who represented the 5 above cases in the skeptical, especially after the last video, it should not be lost on anyone that after officers attack him and hospitalize him, they issue charges which finds no support in the video, he said in a statement. One of those charges, resisting arrest, is not justified by the video. Jameer is on his knees with his hands in the air when he is kicked in the head by an officer who charged at him. So basically, the attorney says, listen, that cop charging him kicked Jameer he was on his knees complying, put his hands in the air, and then you got that cop running to him and kick him in the back of his head. That is not justification, people. This officer should have basically been, fired. And now the chief said we're going to do an investigation. I guarantee they ain't going to do nothing to him. I'm surprised they didn't place him on administrative leave yet. So in other words, he's under investigation, but the longer they taking, the more that they may let this guy go. You know, they'll probably give him a slap on the wrist or something like that. Because that's how they do. That's always how they do. So you see what's happening, ladies and gentlemen, that the Canton Police Department needs to be investigated of corruption in their department. But I told you before, the state of Ohio has issues with police departments, whether it's Canton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Dayton. And there should have been an investigation going on. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the article. There should have been an investigation since day one, and they're not doing it. So they acting like, the chief acting like, well, this is a dangerous job. They've been stressed with the officers. But what does have to do with that officer kicked that man in the back of his head? Because he surrendered to police. He put his hands up. He was kneeling, put his hands up, and your officer kicked him in the back of his head. And this is mainly the reason why I want the feds, and I'm sorry, I want the feds investigate the Canton Police Department, in my opinion. And I'm going to tell you why. Because there's so much incidents that happen in the Canton Police Department, and they let it sweep it under the rug like nothing new. So this incident shouldn't be nothing new to the public about the Canton Police Department. Because I told you multiple incidents that happened in that department. And the police chief acting like, well, you have to understand these officers was, that is a stressful job. And they had to basically dealing with suspects that have guns and blah, 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 blah. But ladies and gentlemen, but the suspects you were referring to complying to your officers. And your officer's responsibility is, if they felt angry, they should have controlled their anger and basically do their jobs. But they're not doing that. And you see incidents like this, that 3 black people in Canton alone were unalive in a few years because of the misconduct of the Canton Police Department. So I'm going to be, if there's another update, I'm going to be doing another update of this to see what they're going to do in this case. But it looks to me all these years, this chief of Canton Police just say things just to defend these officers or to protect these officers. And guess what? This is not going to happen. Because it's already shows you how they do it. But we don't want to hear it from the police chief. We want action. We want action. And if they refuse to get action, then the feds need to be involved in this. So let me know what you think about this in the comments.